Hello, welcome back. Good to see you again. Today we're going to be talking about what is the definition of thought. What are those things going on in your head all the time? What are thoughts actually? By the end of this video, you will have a better understanding of what a thought is and how to use thought constructively to build the life of your dreams. So you're here, you're wondering what the definition of thought is. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So I'm excited to discuss this topic with you because how often do you hear people ask, hey, what are you thinking about? Or what are your thoughts on this topic? But how often does someone say, okay, well, what is a thought? Where does the thought come from? Why do we think? You know, this goes a little bit deeper than we typically address when we're talking about ourselves and who we are. We just go through life and we share our thoughts very openly, but where do these thoughts come from? Why do we have thoughts? And what is a thought? Now that you're thinking about that, let's discuss it a little bit more. So a thought, what is a thought? It's energy. There are thought waves, and this has been studied, and you can see how your thoughts affect and influence things around you. Research has shown this. You can look up other studies on YouTube on like how thought affects things. And you can see research studies on how that actually works and see the evidence of how someone's thoughts can influence meters to move and temperatures and things like that to change. So that's with a thought. You've probably experienced that yourself with going to the doctor. You start thinking about something and then your heart starts beating super fast. And so just with your thoughts, you adjust your body and what's happening with your body. So you've had experience with that. So thought is energy, and it can go out, and also thoughts from other people around you are also influencing you as energetically. And we may not understand that fully, but you've had experience and evidence to show you that that's true. You've had times when you were talking about someone or thinking about someone and they call you or they show up and you're like, hey, I was just thinking about you. Or I was just thinking about that as someone gives you what you were thinking about. So thoughts are energy. They go out and they attract like-minded energy and like energy together. And so that's one definition of thought is energy. And there's the thought waves. Okay. Now, where do our thought patterns come from? Why do we think the way we think? So an infant that's born, how does an infant think? So you watch that child, and for those of you that have seen a baby and held a baby in your arms, and you look into that baby's eyes, have you watched and seen as the baby develops, depth comes to the baby's eyes? At first, there's not a whole lot there as you look into that baby's eyes. But then over the next few weeks, you can start to see in the eyes how that starts to deepen and there starts to become a depth to that human being that is right there. And so I've thought about that as well is, you know, how does this happen where we've got this baby and then we develop belief systems and processes of thinking. And so that's really where it begins of why we think the way we think is as infants, we are surrounded by family friends, by the TV that's blaring in the front room, the music that's playing in the car as we're being driven to and from the store with mom and dad. If there's older siblings in place, you hear them bickering and fighting or praying or whatever's going on in the home. And we're hearing all of this stuff as an infant. And at the time, we don't really know what's happening, but it is beginning to develop in our brain and condition us to a certain way of thinking because those are thoughts and that energy is helping shape us. Think about it. You hear that again? Think about it. You're gonna start to think a little bit differently anytime you hear the word think now, which is good. You'll start to think about your thoughts. So words, we say certain things because of our thoughts. So our thoughts then influence us to speak, to act in different ways. And again, it comes down to that energy of thought, which then goes forward. And so that's that cause and effect. And so the actions, the words that are being spoken around us are all influenced by thought. that energy of thought. And so that is shaping us as an infant. And so as we get older, we have certain thought processes in place that we don't even question, because we grew up and that's the way things are. Why? Because that's the way dad did it, or that's the way mom did it. And we don't even think about why we think that certain way. It just is. You may have heard the example of this one little girl that as she was making dinner with her mom cut off the ends of the ham and put it in the oven, and they began to cook the ham. And the little girl said to the mom, "Mom, why do you cut off the ends of the ham?" And the mom said, "Well, I don't know. That's just the way my mom always did it." So they called Grandma and they say, "Hey, Grandma, why do you always cut off the ends of the ham when you cook it?" And she said, "I don't know. That's just the way my mom always did it." And Great-Grandma happened to still be alive, so they called Great-Grandma and they said, "Great-Grandma, why did you cut off the ends of the ham when you cooked the ham?" And Great-Grandma said, "Well, that's the only way I could get it to fit in the pan that I had." So you see that? Something that was practical in that time, the pan wasn't big enough to fit the whole ham, so she cut off the ends, got passed on generation to generation to generation, without being questioned. And now they had pans that were big enough to fit the whole ham, but this is the way my mom did it, so that's the way it is. We think the same way. Our thoughts are the same way. We don't even question those thoughts. So I'm inviting you in this moment to question your thoughts. Are your thoughts serving you? Or are they holding you back? Think about it. So are there times in your life when you just have accepted what has been presented to you? And you said, "Well, that's just the way it is. That's because of this or that, or I've always thought that way." Is it serving you? Because a thought was energetically placed in you as a child or as an infant is governing your life now. And how you think about life is how life shows up. It's what you energetically attract to yourself. So I encourage you, as you begin to look at your thoughts, to really decide, okay, where did this thought come from? And because thought is energy, what is this thought creating in my life? Is that what I want? Or is there maybe something that could serve me better? And as you start to do so, you'll be fascinated at these different areas of our life of why you live a certain way. I remember when I really started to think about this is I was in college and I graduated with my bachelor's in psychology. And so I was in one of my psychology classes and I started to I was thinking about my family, and we just had a baby, and I was thinking, okay, well, our house is 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So that's probably when we get 3 kids, we'll probably need to get a bigger home because each kid needs their own room. But then I stopped myself there. I was like, wait a second. Why is that the case? Why does there have to be a room for each of the kids? And then I followed that back, and it was just a way of societal conditioning that's the way it is. Whereas my grandpa, when he grew up and with 16 kids in his family, there was like 5 kids in a room, you know? And yet now we think, or at least I had a thought that was conditioned into me that every kid needs their own room. And it was interesting for me to identify that and then to question it and to then change it. That's not necessary. I can do something different. I can have the kids share the room. That's no problem. It's probably actually better for them to learn how to share and to work together in the room. And so it's been fun and not so fun to go through life and identifying those beliefs and those thought processes that were implanted in me that I hadn't even thought to question. And so there's my invitation to you. Think about what you're thinking about. Think about your thoughts and begin to question them. Are they serving you or are they helping you? Now, if you've followed us this far into this film, you're probably enjoying the content of what we have. If so, go ahead and subscribe below and come join with us again tomorrow as we talk about some other amazing topics. Again, thank you for being here, and we'll see you again soon.